Hey my glam girls, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea, where we talk about all things glam and all things girly. I am a beauty enthusiast that loves to talk about everything involving beauty and makeup, but I do like to switch it up from time to time and throw in a little bit of fashion and vlogging. So if that sounds of interest to you, I would love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad. And today, I got this video idea from Jenna Fraze. She's such a sweetheart here on this platform. I enjoy watching her videos. She reviews all high-end and luxury makeup products and beauty products. So when I saw her video, I was like, ooh, I want to do this myself. So thank you, Jenna, for inspiring me to create this video. But I wanted to share with you my top 10 palettes that I recommend from Sephora. But to put a little bit of spin on it, I wanted to rank them so you know how I feel about them and in what order. So that's what we're doing today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I truly do appreciate it. And let's get right into this video. So coming in at number 10, we have this Gucci eyeshadow palette. So here is a up close look at this eyeshadow palette. And I do have, I wanna say, reviews on pretty much every palette that I'm talking about. So I will link them for you so you can get more details about them and also see them in action on my eyes. But wait, I don't think I have, no, I do have a demo of this one. This eyeshadow palette is, let me just be honest, I bought it for the packaging. Look at this outer packaging. It is stunning. On the back of the palette, it's got this beautiful kind of like salmon pink color. And then on the inside, there's a functional mirror right here. Oh, and the tray comes out, as you can see. So I'll be honest, I don't know why they made the tray. Well, I guess the idea of maybe having the tray come out is like if you use up all the eyeshadows, you could potentially use this to store things in. But I'm never gonna use all of these eyeshadows, so that's just that. Getting into the formulation, the mattes actually blend really nicely and a lot better than I thought. The shimmers, if I'm being honest, they are a little underwhelming, the majority of the shimmers. Like this silver shade is quite impactful, but the rest of the shimmers are just nice. They're not really high shine. They're a lot softer in terms of their pigmentation. And I think this palette is great for everyday looks, but it's coming in at number 10 because it is so not a necessity palette. I love Gucci. When I saw this palette, I knew I wanted it to be more so like a keepsake, and so that's why I bought it. If you were looking at this eyeshadow palette and you were just like, you know, is the quality of the eyeshadows good? I would say that they're okay. Like I said, the mattes blend really, really nicely, but in all honesty, you probably have a better palette with these same tones already. So that's why it's coming in at number 10. I don't think this one is a need, and especially for the cost of it, you really want to make sure you're entering into the purchase of this palette, understanding everything. So I'm very glad that I have it. I do use it. I also keep it on display back there, but I would not say that this is a palette that like you must have. Okay, coming in at number 9. So this is one of my favorite pink palettes. And I will be sharing a video ranking all of my favorite pink palettes. This one is definitely one. And I wanted to share this because it is currently half off at Sephora. And it is the Natasha Denona Love Eyeshadow Palette. So coming in at number 9 is this palette. I love everything about this palette, especially the color scheme. I think it's so beautiful. And in my initial review, I definitely said this was not worth the money because her creamy matte formula is, I would say, a little challenging to work with in this particular palette. I figured out though the better way to work with the creamy mattes in this palette is to use a little and build up that way instead of kind of like trying to dip your brush into them and then getting like high impact and depth all at one time. That's where I messed up when I first used this palette, and that is where I have refined my use of the palette, and that's what made me fall in love with the palette because these tones are so up my alley. So the fact that you can get it for half off and you can apply a discount because the Sephora sale is occurring if you're watching this video anytime between November the 5th and the 15th. So the fact that you can probably, most definitely get this palette for under $30, I had to talk about it. It is definitely a favorite of mine. I still use it to this day. and I love it. And I highly suggest it, especially at the price point that it is now. It's already $32.50, and then you get additional savings if you are purchasing this during the sale. So I had to talk about that because that's a steal. Okay, number 8, we have Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl eyeshadow palette. So I remember when this first launched, I was like, I don't need this one. I have 2 other Too Faced palettes like this, you know, in the tin packaging, and I'm just like, I don't need it. But I kept looking at it, and I kept looking at it, and eventually I bought it. And let me just say, I really have enjoyed using this eyeshadow palette. The shimmers and the mattes are solid. I mean, nothing's wrong with them. The mattes blend really beautifully, very easily. The shimmers are impactful. Like, I really don't have anything negative to say about this eyeshadow palette. And the main reason why it's coming in at number 8 is just because I have other eyeshadow palettes that I think are better than this one, but it's not because this one is bad. I think if you've been eyeing this one and you think you might enjoy it, especially with the shades that are within this palette, I highly recommend it. I have not come across any type of dud in this eyeshadow palette, and I'm actually really glad that I purchased it. So very happy with this one. I thought I was going to get it and I was going to be underwhelmed, but I was surprisingly not overwhelmed, but I really enjoyed the palette. So now, coming in at number 7, we have a palette that from the first time I used it, I have been saying, purchase this one during the sale. And we have the Anastasia Primrose palette. This one is beautiful. I really have enjoyed using it, and I have loved on it a lot since I've had it. And I think this is excellent to purchase during the Sephora sale. If you're watching this and it's after the sale, I mean, I still think it's worth purchasing it. I purchased it without a sale, but I think if you are looking at it, definitely save a couple of dollars, get it during the sale. But you're getting, in my opinion, your standard Anastasia formulation. So very pigmented mattes and shimmers. The mattes blend very nicely, but because they are very pigmented, definitely go in with a little bit and build up to your liking so that you're not getting too much shadow in one place at one time. These 2 blush shades are really pretty and quite complementary to the skin. I didn't think this grapefruit pinkish shade would show up on my complexion, but it actually does. And I think this is really beautiful. So coming in at number 7, because I think it's very beautiful. If you like this color scheme, then you're gonna really enjoy the palette. The formulation is solid, but there are some palettes that I do think are better than this one, and that's why it's coming in at number 7. On to number 6. We have Natasha Denona Mini Metropolis palette. So if you saw my initial review of this particular eyeshadow palette, I was quite underwhelmed with it because these 3 shades right here are all in the normal Metropolis palette. These 3 shades right here are in the normal Metropolis palette, and then these 2 shades right here are shades that she added into this palette. One of you all told me that these 2 shades are in her Biba palette, and when I compared them, they're not identical, but there are shades in the Biba palette that are very similar to these. So if you have Biba and Metropolis, you really don't need this one, unless you just want a smaller version of Metropolis to carry with you. So the reason why I was a little disappointed with this palette is because these 2 shimmers right here, which I think are the shades that catch your eye when you look at this palette, they were not as smooth and buttery as they are in the larger Metropolis palette. However, since my review, I have learned from watching Jenna Frase's video that these 2 shades are not the same formula as the shades are in the Metropolis palette on purpose. So once I understood the formulation of these 2 shades, I said, okay, like, although the names of the shades are the same and they are inspired by the shades in the Metropolis palette, the formulation is a little different, which is why they weren't as smooth and buttery. So with that in mind, I do think that this palette is a nice palette. I do think it is one to have, as long as you understand that these two shades are not going to be identical. And when I swatch them, comparing and swatching them to the shades in the larger palette, to me, I noticed difference in what they looked like in terms of their pigmentation, and then applying them to the eyes. Once again, I felt like the shades in the larger palette were more buttery, a little more soft than the ones in here. However, the palette is not horrible. This is definitely not a bad palette. And I do think that you could get some good use out of it, especially if you're like, I'm not gonna purchase any of her larger ones, but I do wanna purchase a smaller one and kind of get the same shades. I think you might like this one. So this one is coming in at number 6 because the mattes in this particular palette are solid. They blend really beautifully. And I just was assuming that these two were gonna be identical to the shades in the larger palette, and they weren't. So I was initially disappointed, but I do like this palette and I am definitely going to continue to use it. So that's that. Number 5, we have a face palette by Hourglass. So I purchased the Hourglass Universal Unlocked palette, and here she is. And I have really loved using this palette. I'm wearing the bronzer today on my cheeks, so you can see that here. And I was happy that this bronzer showed up. So this is the version for deeper skin, which this is not the best that they could do for deeper skin. However, this bronzer does show up, and I would say that this bronzer is, if I could say, the only bronzer within these types of palettes that really have shown up against my complexion. The blushes are beautiful. They are stunning. Like, I love the blushes. I am wearing a different blush today, which I will be sharing with you in another palette. And the highlighter is beautiful. Oh, I didn't put any highlighter on today. Let's put a little highlighter on since I didn't. So I'm gonna go in with the highlighter right here, and we're going to apply it so you can see what it looks like. Can't believe I forgot. But this highlighter is really, really pretty. I love the undertone of it. It's not too gold, but it's also not too pale to where it wouldn't be complimentary for deeper skin. And if you wanted to build it up to be a little more intense, you can, but I like the softness of this highlight because I think this is a really, really good everyday face palette. And so I like that you have a highlight that you could amp it up if you wanted to, or you could apply it more subtle for your more kind of simple go-to everyday looks. And then this finishing powder is beautiful. So I used it today under my eyes, and I love how it just helps to kind of blur that area. I also like how these finishing powders reflect light. So I notice a big difference when using these finishing powders when I'm in the office and I'm under those blaring lights, which make everybody look bad. I've noticed that using these finishing powders helps to soften that so I don't look as grotesque under those lights. So I have really been enjoying this palette a lot, and I use this palette, I would say, almost weekly, which says a lot because I don't have to use it, but I really enjoy using it. The only reason why I'm not talking about this Ambient Lighting Volume 3 palette, which I love more than the Unlocked palette, is because this one is not at Sephora. So, and I wanted to share palettes that were at Sephora. So, but just as kind of a bonus, if you, oh my gosh, this is everything. Everything. Okay, so that was number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have what's on my cheeks, and it is the Patrick Ta Major Headlines blush palette. So this blush palette is so beautiful. It is beautifully formulated. It is everything that you would want his blushes to be, and everything we know his blushes to be, just with different shades. What I think is great about this palette is that you're getting a really great amount of product for a good price. So if you purchase one of the duos is $34. This palette I think retails for $54 or $55. So you get a really good chance to try his blush shades and his blush formula at a little bit of a cheaper price in terms of multiple shades. I do like that there's a sleeve here that protects the cream blushes, and then you have the powder blushes here. And there's a nice little functional mirror as well. Now, what I have on my cheeks today, I went in with this powder blush here, and I did apply it on the high points of my cheeks here, so kind of blended it into the bronzer. And then I went in with a cream blush and applied it here. However, when I was done my eye look came out a little cooler than what I expected. So then I went in with the cream blush here and topped that here to kind of like neutralize the warmth of this blush shade, and I really love how my blush turned out. So I really enjoy this palette. I think it's a really beautiful one to have, and I know in my initial review I said if I had to choose between this palette and the duos, I would go with the duos, and I still do stand by that because I like those tones better, but it does not take away from this palette being a very beautiful palette. Formulation is amazing, and if you're interested and you think you might like it, I would suggest getting it because you probably will like it. Now, I did look, and this palette is sold out online as of November the 5th, but when I checked my local store, it is still available in stores. So if you want this palette, especially if you're trying to get a little bit of a discount on it, check your local store because it's probably still in stock there, and then you can get your hands on it. Coming in with the top 3. So number 3 is What's on My Eyes, and we have none other than Natasha Denona Retro Palette. And this palette, she's just beautiful. When I look at it, I just immediately think fall and winter eye looks, smoky, vampy, cool toned, warm toned, but I would say this palette pulls more cool toned and neutral, and I really, really love it because this time of the year, fall, winter, is when I really like to wear my cooler toned eyeshadow. So this palette I think is beautiful. The formulation is great. Her creamy matte formulas that she has put in here are all really good. None of them are patchy or hard to work with, and I can't say anything negative about it. I have just this kind of go over my eye look with you. I put, nude mauve in the transition area. Then I went in with Rebellion into the crease, and I also went into Groove on the outer edge of the eye, like right along here, and blended that into the crease as well. And then on the lid, I have Helio, which is on the lid, and then inner corner and then lower lash line, I have Glitz right here. Love this eye look. Let me look at it again because I like to look at my face when I talk about products that I like. I love this eye look. I think it looks so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful palette, and I think it is one of her better formulated palettes just across the board. So I do think if you're interested in this one, you should pick it up. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Okay, coming in with the top 2. Number 2, you guys, I'm kind of shocked myself because I did not ever think I would put a Mothership palette in the 2 spot. But we do have Pat McGrath's Utopian Mothership 9 eyeshadow palette. This one is stunning, guys. I mean, I love the tones in this particular eyeshadow palette. The formula is beautiful. I mean, you've got her special shade formula here. She also gave us another one of her trio chromes in this particular palette. I love to use these 2 shades as well as blushes. So this palette now becomes a face palette for me, and I think it is beautiful. However, I have to say, Pat McGrath is running a sale right now, November 5th, where you can get up to 30% off of some of her products, and this palette you can get for 30% off. So I would highly suggest you purchase that palette from her website because you will save more money. And then this palette I think falls in at around like $88 versus the $125. However, if you still want to get it from Sephora, you can because it is sold there as well. But this one is beautiful. I have nothing negative to say about this eyeshadow palette. And the only reason why she is coming in at number 2 is because there is a palette that is better than that. And I think if you're going to spend your money and you needed to choose between Utopian or this one, you have got to go with this one. Can you guess what it is? I'm gonna let you put in the comment section. Which palette do you think is number 1 out of the palettes that were released, I would say in the past couple of months? Put it down in the comment section because I wanna know if you all know. If you have guessed it, Pat McGrath's Celestial Odyssey palette. You guys, this palette right here, she is everything. Pat McGrath put both her feet, elbows, hands, her whole body in this palette. I cannot say enough good things about it. The formulation is beautiful, matched, blend like a dream. The shimmers and metallic shades are just everything. So pigmented, so multi-dimensional. I mean, there's so many shadows in this palette in terms of the shimmers and metallics that can truly be like one and done eye looks, but your eyes look like you put more effort into them. I mean, amazing. And it is everything. I have used this palette the most out of all of the eyeshadow palettes that we've talked about today, except for the Love palette, and that's only because I've had the Love palette longer. But this is the one that I have been using the most lately out of the newer ones that I have picked up. And this palette, I will admit, you cannot get any savings on Pat McGrath's website, so this is a great one to purchase during the Sephora sale if you want to save a couple of dollars, because her VIP sale is not applicable to this palette here. So wanted to put that out there. But I can't say enough good things about this palette. If you don't have it, ma'am, sir, I think you need to go ahead and get this one. And you all know I try not to say you need stuff, because I know I get excited about it, and I keep trying to tell myself like we don't need more makeup. But oh, let me tell you, this is one palette by Pat McGrath that is something special. And it is something special when you can outrank a Mothership palette. I mean, I'm essentially saying take this palette over her special shade formula, which to me, I truly love. I feel like her special shades are definitely not something that you just readily have within your collection. But I think that as a whole palette, this one just brings it to you. And if you're someone whose special shades don't work for you, because I know there's some people, their eyes just are not compatible with that, you don't have to worry about it with this particular palette. And there's probably better formulas in here that would work for your eyes, or that you just, are a little more comfortable using, because there's not a lot of fuss or, fallout or things like that with these shades. I can't say enough good things about Celestial Odyssey. I definitely feel like that's one you should add to your repertoire. Out of all the palettes I've talked about today, if you can only get one, Celestial Odyssey is the one to get, and I stand by that. So thank you so much for watching my video. Did you guess that Celestial Odyssey is #1? Maybe you did. If you did, then you already know. If you didn't, I'm telling you, that is one to check out. Tell me in the comment section, because you guys know I like to chat with you. Tell me what your #1 eyeshadow palette has been. I would say in the past 2 months that we've been seeing like holiday makeup and things like that. What is your #1 palette that you have purchased from the most recent launches? Doesn't have to be an eyeshadow palette, could be a face palette. I'd love to hear all of that in the comment section below. And if you've made it to this point in the video and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad. And guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my very next video. Bye guys.